Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Good topic? Let's do it. People who killed in self-defense. What happened? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. I killed the guy that tried to break into my apartment because he was wanting his wife that he had just beat the shit out of. 2 a.m. I hear them arguing. I could hear it through my bathroom wall. I shut my bathroom, then bedroom, to drown it out. 2:15 a.m., she's banging on my door with a broken nose, left eye swollen and limping from tripping and falling to get out of the apartment. Told her to go to the bathroom, clean herself up, then hide in my bedroom. Husband comes out of the apartment, yelling her name, and he notices her blood trail to my apartment. Starts banging on my door, yelling to let him in. I warned him 3 times that if he doesn't stop, I'll kill you. He kicks the lock on the door. The door swings open, and I swing my baseball bat down onto his head. He falls to the ground stunned. He lands stomach first, and I see a handgun tucked into the back of his shirt. I grab it, throw it into my apartment, and warn him one more time. He got up, came at me, and I slammed my bat into his stomach, then slammed my bat over his head one last time, which caved his skull in. I knew from the blood splatter from when I hit him that he was dead. Thankfully, the neighbors had called the police when it started, and the second he fell to the ground dead, police had made it to the top of the steps. Everyone that was awake came out, gave their statements, and the police talked to the wife in my bedroom. She told the police that she wasn't leaving that room, so they could take her statement there. I gave my statement, handed over my bat, and showed them the gun, which was registered to him. Called into work that day. Okay. Woken up in the middle of the night by banging on the front door. A security camera showed a man kicking at the door and carrying an axe, which he would occasionally swing at the door handle. We called the police, and they were en route. With 911 on the phone on speaker, I got my shotgun and yelled to the man that he needed to leave and that we were armed. The partner stayed with the kids in their bedroom. I shouted several times that he needed to leave and that I would shoot him. He kept kicking the door. He finally broke the door enough to get through. I leveled the gun and shouted again, and he came at me, and I fired. Double-lock buckshot in the upper chest. I kicked the axe away and kept the gun pointed at him. The police arrived less than 30 seconds after, and I put the shotgun down with my hands up. The police officer took my shotgun, handcuffed, and rendered aid to the man, but he was already dead. I'm assuming they, the police, still have to try. The police took a statement, and I emailed the video, front porch, and inside to the detective. A few days later, we got a call from the police that the family of the man wanted to talk to me, and the detective said he thought I should. They were very kind and apologized for their son's actions. They offered to pay for the door he kicked in and any other damage to the house. The father was very quiet, but had a kind expression. The mother did most of the talking and explained that their son had gotten involved in drugs and they lost him a year ago. They both apologized many times and offered to help. I explained that our homeowner's insurance was covering the door. It was an antique mahogany door with stained glass and damage to the house. We sold the house shortly after. The kids and us were not comfortable living there after, and moved across town. Every year since we've gotten a Christmas card from the parents. I was being jumped by 4 guys. One stabbed me in the side in the scuffle. I managed to thrust my knife into one of the guy's sides and into his lung. The other 3 ran off. I sat against the fence, listening to him try to breathe, and cried until the police and ambulance arrived. He was DOA. I was taken to the hospital, and then the station, and questioned. Held till trial because I was a minor. Was deemed self-defense and forced into therapy to deal with the night terrors. Lasted about 5 years. A guy wanted to steal my bike while I was walking with it at night, not allowing to bike in certain areas in my country due to it being for pedestrians. After refusing him and trying to push him away, he stabbed me in the stomach. I reacted by punching him with my keys between my fingers. I hit him in the neck, hit an artery. He died a couple of minutes later. Not me, but I was on the scene. I'm a music video director in Los Angeles. We were shooting a music video scene in Compton when some goons tried to come press the video set scene. One thing led to another, where one of the goons pulled out a gun, demanding payment to film in his hood. Personal security pulled out his gun and shot the guy dead in front of everyone. Bittersweet moment, for sure. My coworker's dad was a jewelry salesman. He went on a sales call with some high-end pieces, and when he was leaving, a guy shot him in the parking lot. He fell down behind his car, and when one of the guys ran up, he shot him. The other guy ran off. Her dad recovered. Both guys end up in jail. A friend in college had a kid with an absolute shitbag of a guy. She couldn't save him. After they broke up, she moved back in with her parents. The guy went absolutely mental. Got arrested a few times for stalking her. One day he showed up at her parents' house and started shooting it up. Her mom and she had gone to the store, but her dad was in the barn. Dad shot the guy. He wasn't missed. Not me, but a neighbor of mine worked as an armed security guard in a store here in Cali where it is not stand your ground state. He was telling dudes to stop doing donuts in a packed parking lot. When he went up to the window, the dude grabbed him and hit him, knocking him down. While he was down, the guy got out of the car and rushed toward him. He pulled his gun and killed the guy. He was locked up for a month or so because his friends claimed was unprovoked, and the store was not necessarily a reputable one. Cops pretended there was no footage. He had public defenders who sucked too. We convinced his family to call up a private attorney. Within a day, video was magically found, and he was released with no charges. I worked as a maritime security contractor in 2020 and had to defend the ship. In lockdown, my friend, former Army Ranger here being medically discharged at 23, was attending a veterans support group. He got approached by a guy looking for security guys. He was super excited. The ship was also requiring everyone to be vaccinated, so that was really hurting his staffing. Normally, you have to be former military personnel, but due to the desperation and a lot of complacency, they offered me a role. I'm a pretty handy guy with a rifle and used to be an EMT. Had to do a little test to prove proficiency with a rifle, and I was hired, and I later found out at a much lower rate than everyone else, but was still getting about as much as an average person's yearly salary for a few months' work. Did some training, got on the boat in the UAE, and on the way to Mombasa, we got engaged. I remember standing and seeing a spark from a ricochet and a pipe burst fluid from a round from the pirates and thinking, whoa, that was a real bullet. The idea I was being shot at was so foreign to me it took a moment to register it. I couldn't hear anything except my breathing and my heartbeat. Boats are normally very loud, as is gunfire, but I couldn't hear a thing. I came up over my sandbags, and by dumb luck, my reticle was pretty much bang on a guy. I could see the whites in his eyes. He had a blue Cookie Monster shirt on and an AK in a little skiff boat. I made a weird gasp that I'd never made before or made since, flicked off the safety and pulled the trigger right over his right cheekbone. My report says I shot another guy in the boat, but I don't remember it at all. I do remember seeing the blood on the back of their boat through the scope, though. I also remember bragging before going about how nothing would happen and that if it did, I'd be fine. I wasn't, but not for the reasons I would think. My boss gave me the number of a therapist who fought in the Black Hawk Down battle, and he probably saved my life. I was so angry at the pirate for making me shoot him for something as dumb as money. Like, I would have paid him to not try and hijack the boat. It made me really bitter at the world, but simultaneously made me aware of how fragile life is. I moved my finger 2 inches, and 2 lives were done. Possibly decades of life, and boom, over. I often think about Cookie Monster shirt guy. Was he funny? What was his name? Was he an older brother like me? What was his favorite sports team? Did he have a girl he had a crush on? A couple of nights after the incident, we watched Star Wars, And there's a scene where Han and Leia are on the speeders on Endor, and they juke, and a stormtrooper chasing them crashes into a tree and dies. I absolutely bawled my eyes out over this. A scene I had watched dozens of times over a faceless character in a movie. I sobbed and sobbed over the stormtrooper's death. My therapist helped me with the kill for money thing. He asked me what I would have done if someone told me, "Shoot him and you won't get paid." I said I'd still do it because otherwise I or my crew would die. He pointed out that I didn't do it for money, but to protect my friends. Same reason he shot people in Somalia. Your therapist is right, and clearly knows from experience. Not that anyone should ever be put in that situation, but it happens, and you're protecting friends, and it's messy business. You did the right thing. So not me, but someone I know. She is a grandma. Her husband was a Vietnam vet, and they had a very cute and happy marriage. Husband got ill out of the blue and died. About a year later, the grandma started seeing someone. Sadly, after being in a lifelong happy marriage, she found herself being abused by this man and had never been treated this way. I imagine she stayed because she was lonely. According to what I heard through the grapevine, he attacked her one night at his house in fear. She grabbed a loaded gun that was nearby. He was a former cop gun nut and shot him dead. His 40-year-old adult son was home at the time playing video games. She had to get him and tell him what had happened. They called the police and she was arrested and charged with murder. The local news did publish a story with her name in it, saying she was arrested for murder. This 80-year-old woman was in jail for a few days before she was finally released. She was told the case is still open, and they will continue to investigate. Her lawyers told her essentially to never talk about what happened with anyone. Don't tell your kids, don't go to therapy. Someday, maybe years from now, the detectives will come calling and interview people looking for a reason to lock you up. It's really sad. Local news never took down the story, so if anyone Googles her, they'll think she's a murderer. And she went from a blissfully happy marriage to a lifetime of trauma within 18 months. I was working out of town and staying at a high-end establishment, the Super 8 motel, company booked. I had just gotten off of work and back to the room. So I dropped my gear and walked across the street to a 7-Eleven. As I walked over, I noticed a woman sitting around the side of 7-Eleven crying and cradling what looked like a baby. She was alone and sobbing. I walked her way, and when I was 15 feet away, I just said, "Ma'am, are you okay?" She looked up and nodded at me. She was clearly distraught. Didn't look to be injured or beaten or anything. I asked if she needed anything, and she looked up at me, but as soon as she looked my way, her eyes looked to my right, and I turned to look and see a man running full speed at me. Before I could even react, he raised his fist to hit me while running full speed. I turn away, and he just kind of runs into me. He starts wildly swinging at me, but nothing's really connecting. He's fighting more like a child, just swinging everywhere. I'm backing up, circling around, dodging him, doing everything to avoid him and not engage him. He comes at me one more time, and I'm able to grab him by both shoulders and use his own momentum to throw him past me and onto the ground. He gets up and runs around the back of 7-Eleven. I look around and look at the woman kind of like, what the was that? She's clutching her baby tight, not saying a word, and there's no one else around who saw it. I check around the back of 7-Eleven and see nothing. So I go to walk into 7-Eleven to talk to the worker or anyone who saw anything. I was inside for maybe 5 minutes. Talked to the workers, got some snacks and some beer, and went to leave. When I got around the side of the store, I turned to see if the woman was still there, and she was gone. Then I turned to walk across the street to my motel, and I hear some footsteps running at me again from the gas pumps. I turn and see him, coming straight at me. I square up to him, raise my right foot, and just flat foot kick him directly in the chest with my Irish settlers, and he drops hard. His momentum from running and my kick to the chest made his feet come out from under him, and he landed on his back and slammed the back of his head onto asphalt out cold. A couple of people at the gas pump saw it and came over. I called 911 immediately. Cops showed up in about 3 minutes. The ambulance took much longer. I told the cops the entire story, and they looked at the cameras from 7-Eleven and from the motel and told me it was clearly self-defense. Took my info, and I was on my way after about 45 minutes. They called me 3 days later, saying the man was bleeding on his brain and most likely wouldn't make it. He was a transient, known well by the police. He had no family, no insurance, and was essentially on life support. My name is still on record, but I was not charged with manslaughter or anything. I'm not going to go into too many details because my case did reach the courts and the news, so pardon my brevity. I was staying at my parents' place. They were on vacation, thank God. A man broke in a window upstairs while I was in the basement. They did not expect anyone to be home. I popped out and screamed, and the asshole grabbed a nearby knife and came at me. I regretfully ended his life instantly, and the younger one ran off with the car and caught almost a full day later, charged with manslaughter, and the police later charged it to murder. He was convicted of the original charge and has since been released. About 2 years of court, I was cleared of all charges. Only spent 20 minutes in jail before being moved to an interview room and later released. Turns out you can defend yourself in Canada. You just have to prove it was necessary. $600,000 in court costs and a lifetime of trauma. And the constant guilt of it. Was it worth it? Yes. Would I use a gun if there was a next time? No. It was over 15 years ago, and while I've gotten over it, it's not something you can ever forget. And the sounds of someone, even someone who means you great harm, dying on the floor in front of you is truly awful. So I haven't killed in self-defense. I have, however, committed an attempted murder in self-defense. However, the level of force used was later decided to be not reasonable, and I spent 6 years in prison. To put it as simply as possible, my mother at the time had a partner who seemed like an angel but turned into a devil. One night they were arguing, and it was close to becoming violent. I called the police to come and de-escalate tensions and hopefully prevent harm. Unfortunately, they didn't show up in time. 45 minutes after making the initial call, my mother's partner lunged for her with a knife in hand. He was on top of her on the sofa, bearing all his weight onto her neck. I, upon seeing this, pulled a knife out of my pocket from earlier. I had armed myself in case of anything. This guy is a foot taller and an extra 70 kilos on me. I heard my mom. This noise she was making was horrible, trying to ask for help, but the sound was just fear. I plunged the knife into his back 3 times, puncturing both his lungs. I then got him in a headlock, pulled him from her, and in the struggle, stabbed him multiple times in the neck, face, ear, and eye. I was charged with attempted murder. I pled guilty for various reasons. I got 11 years and 4 months, serving half in custody and half on license. The neighbor's dog tackled my then pregnant wife, and I unloaded a .22 into its side when I got it off her, and it latched onto my wrist. Maybe not the self-defense story someone wants to hear, but when the dog is going around attacking animals and people, I saw little else I could do. Edit. So people stop assuming it wasn't a fucking pit bull, it was a Doberman mix. Pit bulls are not bad dogs. Stop accusing them of being bad dogs.